along with Albie Amoncona, Emily Carver, Benjamin Butterworth and Leo Kearse. Tonight on the show, it's outrageous that we treat our veterans worse than illegal migrants.
Russia on the brink. Is it better than the devil we know?
Is the NHS actually making us fatter?
Why Britain is doomed and we need to get a general election now.
And Glastonbury is a festival of hypocrisy.
It's 8 p.m. and this is the Saturday Five. Welcome to the Saturday Five. This is one band of mercenaries who aren't yet planning a military insurrection. Instead, you can expect the usual hour of no-holds-barred debate and spicy opinions. As always, I'm joined by Albie, Emily and Benjamin, and this week's guest is the strong man of the comedy circuit, Leo Kearse.
Now, the premise of the show is simple. Each host gets around a minute to outline their argument about their chosen topic. Then the backstabbing and treachery gets underway. And, of course, we want to know all of your views as well. Get in touch by emailing gbviews@gbnews.com. But before we start tearing each other apart, it is your Saturday Night News with Rory Smith.
Thank you very much, Emily. The Russian mercenary group Boss has ordered his fighters to turn back from Moscow to avoid bloodshed. Yevgeny Prigozhin's forces were on their way to Moscow on what he called a march for justice to remove Russian commanders he blames for mishandling the war in Ukraine. Well, now Prigozhin has told troops to turn around and return to their bases. It's a major de-escalation of what had become a serious challenge to President Vladimir Putin's grip on power. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says the rebellion exposed complete chaos in the country. We can now listen to the moment Prigozhin updated his troops.
ЧВК «Вагнер» хотели расформировать.
They wanted Wagner Group to be dismissed. On June the 23rd, we went out for the March of Justice. Over the last 24 hours, we have advanced short of 200 kilometres to Moscow. We didn't spill a drop of blood of our fighters on the way. Now, it's a moment when blood could be spilled. We understand the responsibility for Russian blood could possibly be spilled on each side. That is why we are turning our columns and heading back to our summer camps, as it was planned.
The safety investigation into the Titan submersible could take up to 2 years. If you're watching on television, you can see live pictures of St John's Harbour. That's where the investigation is currently taking place on the Polar Prince vessel that arrived back at the harbour earlier today. Well, the Transportation Safety Board of Canada is interviewing those who were on board the ship, which lost contact with the Titan submersible. The Prime Minister has paid tribute to the phenomenal precision and professionalism of British troops as events are held across the UK to mark Armed Forces Day. King Charles has also thanked personnel for the immense and dedicated contribution of the British military, both at home and overseas. He drew on his own time in the military, saying he recognised the deep pride service personnel take in their duty. Well, people in Manchester told us what today means to them.
One of these things that should be recognised. The army should be recognised, the veterans should be recognised. There's, you go to America and they're recognised. Here, they're sort of like brushed under the carpet and it's all wrong.
It's show my support for the veterans, the injured veterans and the cadets who hopefully, and they're our future, all being well.
Show your respects like in that, there's a lot of colleagues in that who aren't here today, who would like to be here, but for the guys who are serving now and the girls, so yeah, we still need our armed forces, and just for be part of that, it's something we're proud of.
TV, online, DAB+ radio and on TuneIn, this is GB News. Now though, back to the Saturday Five.
It is Saturday night and you are with the Saturday Five. I'm Emily Carver. And if you missed out on Glastonbury tickets this weekend, don't despair. We're about to bring you a few greatest hits, plus a few golden oldies, Darren? Although I wouldn't be expecting any free love.
Leo will be dealing with Glastonbury shortly, but first, as mercenaries potentially push Russia towards the brink of civil war, let's get Albie's take on this huge story. Albie, the floor is yours.
Russia was thought to be on the brink of civil war earlier on today when the Wagner Group mercenaries were on their way to Moscow, the country's capital. The West seems to be watching on with glee at the prospect of the fall of Vladimir Putin. But what if what comes next is worse? Now, I wouldn't be upset to see the back of Vladimir Putin. He is a deeply, deeply evil man. His illegal invasion of Ukraine is beyond the pale. But this Wagner Group, what do we know about them, this group of people who were marching, driving towards Moscow earlier on today? They're a group of mercenaries, mostly made up of convicts, some of whom proudly don Nazi swastikas on their armour. These would have been the people, if the coup was successful, who would have been in control of the largest military arsenal of nuclear weapons in the world. Isn't that a chilling prospect? Is it a good thing or a bad thing that the convoy seems to have turned back, according to our most recent reports? Who knows? Now, what comes next? Is Putin still in control of his country, really? Or is the leader of the Wagner Group pulling the strings from behind? And what does that mean for broader Western security? The prospect of a Russian civil war and the Ukrainian war happening at the same time should concern us deeply. But what do you think? When it comes to Wagner versus Putin, is it a case of better the devil you know? Now, this is a rapidly developing story, Leo. Since we came into the studio, it's been reported that the convoy has turned back around.
Yeah.
But what does this mean for Putin in power of Russia?
Well, he's not in power of Russia anymore. I mean, he's been completely exposed. He's not the strong man anymore. So Prigozhin is effectively the de facto leader, and he's calling the shots. But I'm not worried about Prigozhin being the leader. I think Putin's danger is he's fallen victim to the malaise that affects all dictators after a couple of decades in the job. He believes his own PR, and he's striving for legacy. So he wants to reunite the former Soviet states. Obviously, that didn't work out very well for him, but it's still a terrible war that he's continuing. Whereas Prigozhin just wants to be rich and powerful. So, and he's a Russian nationalist rather than trying to reunite this idea of a Soviet Union. So I think he'd be a much more rational person to deal with.
But Benjamin, can we trust whatever deal has been brokered between the leader of the Wagner Group and Vladimir Putin, they're both going to keep to their word?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure trust is the first word that comes to mind with these people. I feel, literally they are megalomaniac Nazis, right? Zelensky was asked if he cared if this meant that Putin might be dead, might be killed in the process of some coup coming up in the coming week, and he said he didn't care. And I think that's probably how pretty much everyone feels, right? These are a collection of awful people. I'd always thought that the only way to kill Putin would be to put some poison in his Botox, based on the state of that affairs. But, I think it is difficult to say whether it's better or worse because these people are so unpredictable. I mean, I was almost going to say, at least Putin seemed like somebody that understood the world stage, that comprehended, at least on some level, the structures around the world. He clearly gave that all up when he invaded Ukraine. I think what might be a good outcome to this is that the invasion of Ukraine has clearly gone catastrophically wrong from Russia's perspective. They are utterly useless. They are not strong at all. Maybe if they have a new leader, it gives them an excuse to back out of Ukraine without the embarrassment that Putin will feel personally, because I don't think he would back out anytime soon.
But it's interesting you say that that Zelensky doesn't care whether or not Putin dies. But, Emily, should we care whether Putin dies or whether Putin lives? Because could this just not lead to a massive destabilisation of the Russian state?
Well, this is my instant reaction. I look at a megalomaniac narcissist, which is
that me
Putin.
or...
Sorry, yes. I won't put any poison in your Botox, don't worry. And I think how much... it was a stark reminder of how unstable Russia is as a country. And I worry whether Putin will now go to even more catastrophic lengths in order to win this war or be seen to win this war. Could that mean nuclear? That is what I'm worried about. That is what people around the world are worried about. That is what we should be asking military experts and foreign affairs specialists. What happens next in Putin's mind? What would he be thinking at this moment? And he still does have the power to press that button, I believe.
But it's just such an unpredictable situation, Darren. Really, no one knows what comes next. What do you think is the exit strategy from this awful situation in Russia and Ukraine? You know, thousands of lives have been lost. Billions has been spent in aid and on military aid. What's the exit strategy here?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I think the fastest way to get President Putin out of office would have been for Prince Harry to be able to interview him. That would have been the fastest way to get him out, which is reported, actually, that Prince Harry really wanted to do that because, you know, what the world needs in order to bring about peace is Prince Harry.
But what is the exit strategy?
I think the exit strategy, I think what Benjamin said there makes sense in that, you know, new leadership, a new direction.
Goodness
and actually,
me.
well, yeah, there's a first. And you start to be able to see a way of saying, right, we're going to pull back. But Putin was most recently waving about a peace deal that he'd apparently said was plausible and sent over to Ukraine. Ukraine flatly rejected it because, of course, they still want to keep on to Ukrainian territory. And I think that's probably the only way out because Putin's ego is far too big for him to admit defeat, for him to actually admit that it's gone horribly wrong. And it's been the biggest geopolitical cock-up since Suez, maybe, you know?
I don't think it's the only way out. I think if we send Gaza to Moscow with a bucket of fried chicken and a fishing rod, I think this could be over by Monday.
It's true.
But, Leo, you said that you felt that it would be good to have the leader of the Wagner Group because you thought he was more of a rational thinker.
Yeah.
Is it rational thought for someone who said that earlier on today that the Ukrainian invasion was a bad idea?
It was a bad idea.
Who has now turned back on that and is now probably going to rejoin the Ukrainian invasion. Is that rational thought to you?
Well, I mean, that's two separate things. I mean, he's been paid to conduct the Ukrainian invasion, but he doesn't think it's a good idea, and he doesn't think the Russian military, particularly Shoigu, the defence minister, and Gerasimov, or whatever he's called, the top general, he thinks they've been, apparently a condition of the deal is that those two resign. So Wagner, Prigozhin, they just want to get rich. They're mercenaries. They want to get rich. They want to run their diamond mines and whatever businesses they've got in Africa and everywhere else and get rich off the Russian state. And that's, I mean, it's a strange place when you're hankering for the good old days of oligarchs who just wanted to loot the wealth of a country instead of just having this idea of expanding their country. But that's where we are.
Absolutely. Well, moving on to slightly less weighty matters. Thousands upon thousands of people are in Somerset this weekend, but Leo Kearse isn't one of them. Yes, it's time, folks, for Leo's lament.
Yeah, Glastonbury is a festival of hypocrisy. At the moment, 200,000 woke lefties are holding hands in a field in Somerset, calling for open borders and an end to racism and net zero. What a bunch of hypocrites. They want an end to racism, unless it's anti-Semitism, apparently, because they champion Jeremy Corbyn, and a film defending him was screened at Glastonbury this weekend. They want net zero, but Glastonbury leaves behind a mountain of plastic bucket hats and disposable vapes. One moment, Greta Thunberg is exhorting us to travel by donkey. The next moment, Bruce Springsteen is being thanked by Paul McCartney for flying in first class from California. And there's a diesel generator on every corner powering the fairy lights. It's ridiculous, an absolute charade. But the biggest hypocrisy is that people at Glastonbury call for open borders while they're surrounded by the most secure border this side of Stalag Luft. They've got 2 metal perimeter fences 4 metres high, over 4 metres high, with a metal apron to stop anybody tunnelling and an overhang to stop anybody climbing over. And there's a Nazi watchtower there to make sure, I'm sure they're not actually armed with sniper rifles, but they can spot anybody trying to get in for free. All I'm saying is, why can't we have just a smidgen of that level of security on our country's borders? Why is it just music festivals that have to be protected? I think it's slightly more important to protect our country from any violent Islamists that want to waltz in and commit terror attacks than it is to stop people seeing Billie Eilish for free. So Glastonbury festival goers, you're a bunch of hypocrites.
Well, well, well. I mean, Leo, to be honest with you, Jacob Rees-Mogg's constituency of this parish, of course, is right next door to Glastonbury. And I tell you what, the amount of drugs being done there, he's probably higher than Benjamin's ego right now. It's incredible.
Do you know what's really annoying? Just Stop Oil. Now, they've been interrupting music festivals. For example, the opera, Glyndebourne. They decided to disrupt
That's your kind of music festival.
My kind of music festival. I have actually been to Glastonbury and I won't be going again, actually. Probably not for me. But anyway, they are happy to disrupt sporting events that people enjoy. Guess what? They're not disrupting Glastonbury. Why? Because they've been invited into the politics tent, haven't they? They're sat there with BBC correspondent for climate change. They're sat there with other politicians and things trying to get their word out, and presumably they get a free ticket.
Yeah.
So they'll disrupt everyone else's fun, but, oh, Glastonbury, we like them. We'll go along and join in.
Look, I'm not going to pretend that I don't wish that I was at Glastonbury instead of here with you wonderful people. But I will say, well, I'm not going anywhere, unfortunately, but I will say that I do think a lot of the people at Glastonbury are just complete hypocrites. You know, Emily, you mentioned that you've been. I don't know if anyone else on this panel has been to Glastonbury, but when you leave Glastonbury, just the rubbish and the litter and the tents which are left just for people to come and clear up, and most of it probably goes into landfill. You're right to say diesel generators everywhere, people smoking all over the place. You know, I'm sure the environmental cost of Glastonbury is huge, yet the kinds of people that go to Glastonbury are all of these eco-warriors that are totally against this stuff.
But what a load of miserable old people you sound like. Just sat there moaning about people drinking and smoking at a festival. They can live their lives as they want.
It's the virtue signalling hypocrisy of them. If they went to those festivals, I used to go to festivals, I wasn't saying, oh, nobody else should burn any fossil fuel or use any plastic. I was like, yeah, use plastic, do what you want, be free, live your life.
I mean, look, first of all, I think this idea that they are all sort of hippies like the type you would see in the 60s that only go to Glastonbury is a bit silly. You know, today's Times newspaper had a feature on £5,000 a night glamping at Glastonbury.
They had Jeremy Corbyn giving a speech calling for open borders. They had Greta Thunberg giving a speech demanding net zero.
I think there are plenty middle-class poshos, and not just when Emily went. But look, you know, I mean, look, Glastonbury itself as an institution banned that Jeremy Corbyn film that was anti-Semitic.
They still showed it.
Yeah, some random group showed it, and it looked like a little care home with about 50 people watching. You know, I really don't think it's something to get het up about. You know, something like Glastonbury is a massive benefit for this country.
Why are they allowed to have such secure borders around their festival? Why don't they lead by example and have no borders at all?
Yeah, answer that one, Benjamin.
But, I mean, look, nobody actually believes in open borders.
Yes,
That's
they do.
The kind of nonsense.
They're demanding open borders. They're saying, don't build a wall. Jeremy Corbyn was saying, don't build a wall. He's criticising Trump for building a wall.
Why would you build a wall in this country? I mean, what nonsense. Look, the truth is that people who are trying to escape Yemen or Afghanistan is not comparable to people that want to go and watch Billie Eilish or Elton John do his final set, OK? That's clearly a ridiculous comparison.
Well, I don't think
this is a private company. It does a huge amount for the local area.
That's
it puts
ridiculous.
a huge amount into British music, and that's why it has a border.
Say the Manchester Arena bomber, who was rescued by the Royal Navy from Libya and brought back to this country. You think it's great that he was brought back? You don't think we should have secure borders?
Of course you should be checking who comes into the country, and no serious person says otherwise. Okay?
I don't know if you saw a report out yesterday or today, I can't even remember, thousands of Albanian men have absconded from hotels. We literally do not have border control.
If I had my way, Leo, we'd have that across the border. Suella Braverman would be up there watching on the watchtower herself if I had my way.
If Suella Braverman were up there, it'd be full of people coming in on boats. Because you sit there, you right-wingers sit there lecturing me about open borders. It's the ones you voted for that let everyone in, not my lot.
Well, I don't dispute
But it was certainly Blair who kicked it off.
Yeah, there's no mass migration before the Tory party.
Illegal immigration was much lower under the last Labour governments than it is right now. So you lot explain that,
But
not
Benjamin,
me.
what about all the waste that's left over at Glastonbury? I don't know if you've seen any of the images or if you've been yourself, but it is honestly like something from a war scene when Glastonbury is over. Do you not think it's bad that these eco-warriors go to Glastonbury and then don't clean up after themselves?
I mean, there's not as much rubbish there as the ones you speak tonight, to be honest.
Answer the question.
Look, of course people should clean up after themselves, but the idea that somehow a great British business like Glastonbury, the greatest
business.
festival in the world, where the most famous artists, you know, Taylor Swift is said to be there next year.
They shouldn't even be making a profit.
Well, actually,
Glastonbury came about from a left-wing ideology. It was always supposed to be left-wing. They should be, you know,
Good news,
not
Emily,
even,
because they
it's
put
not
all
a
the money
business.
back
It should be
into
making
Glastonbury.
well, yeah, well, then they have to, you know, keep it empty for a year, don't they?
There we have
anyway,
it, the IEA saying we shouldn't have profit.
I think if people scroll back, they might see that that's not what I said. Anyway, still to come tonight, Benjamin is demanding a general election now. Of course he is. And I found out the NHS could be, believe it or not, making us fatter. But next, it's grime time. And this Armed Forces Day, Darren reckons we treat veterans worse than illegal immigrants. You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, from 9:30 on Sunday morning when I'll be asking former Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng why Britain is fast becoming the West's inflation monster. Is Trussonomics really to blame? And I'll be joined in the studio by Tony Abbott, Australia's former Prime Minister, to discuss how he stopped the votes and whether conservatism is dying not just in Britain but around the world. Whatever you do, don't miss the Camilla Tominey Show this Sunday morning from 9:30.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Thank you very much for sending in your emails about tonight's topics. Regarding the crisis in Russia, Mike says this will just do more to unite the people behind Putin and against Ukraine and NATO. I would like to discuss that one.
What are you huffing? That is the maddest take I've ever heard.
Well, let's see what Jean has to say. She says she's from Glastonbury. Oh, no, she's talking about Glastonbury. If Glastonbury's borders are so secure and all those tents have been left, Perhaps that would be a good place to home all the illegal immigrants.
Oh,
yes.
Well, there's an idea.
Do it during the festival. That's what I want to see.
But now it's time for our next clash. Darren is going to tell us why he thinks our armed forces are getting a bit of a rough deal. Yep, it's crime time.
Yeah, on this glorious Armed Forces Day, it's time we put our troops before those brazen illegal entrants sneaking into dear old Blighty. Can you believe it? I bet you can by now that we've already had a whopping 3,500 people crossing the channel this month alone. That's more than last June already. I mean, for crying out loud. It looks like someone forgot to stop the boats, eh? This week, I was recollecting our valiant Brexit vote from 7 years ago. In my eyes, it was a vote to honour those who sacrificed so very much to protect our democracy, sovereignty and our way of life. But now, I can't help but wonder, would our ancestors actually be proud of what this country has become? Are we supposed to feel a swell of pride when we see low-flouting individuals being housed in cosy hotels, whilst our veterans face homelessness and our serving soldiers battle rats, mould, flooding and lukewarm showers in their own accommodation? It's an utter disgrace. The taxpayers' teat is being sucked dry, tighter than a politician's promise to reduce net migration during an election year. But fear not, dear patriots, for GB News stands firm in its unwavering dedication to fairness for our military heroes and their families. We've gone so far that we've even signed the Armed Forces Covenant. Unlike weak-willed politicians, we won't be bystanders here on this channel. And take a gander at what the Times reported yesterday. Thousands of Albanian asylum seekers crossing the channel in their little boats are apparently vanishing from our hotels. If only our troops had such luxurious accommodation to choose from, eh? I've had enough of these spineless politicians that are too afraid to stand up for our country's interests and our priorities. Our armed forces deserve the full support of the taxpayer, not some illegal migrant. If you break our laws, you should expect a good dose of hostile environment, not our brave soldiers. It's time to put our troops first, and anyone who thinks otherwise is, of course, welcome to naff off elsewhere. Benjamin Butterworth, would you like to naff off elsewhere?
Look, I've been to Albania and it's an incredibly dull country, so I can see why they want to come here. Look, on the immigrants thing, I don't think we should be taking Albanians as refugees. Countries like Germany and Sweden record zero in recent years' figures, but I would like them to come as economic migrants. We need them. On your real point about how we treat veterans, clearly there are cases where we don't treat them well enough. But you're someone who spends half your life going on about how the state is too big, how we spend too much on benefits, how we don't need this safety net being so excessive. So how do you square that with the consequences of your political decision?
Because there is no more important a role for the state than the defence of the realm. That should be their most important act to actually ensure that
So I don't know which question you thought I asked, but that's not an answer.
It absolutely is, because we should be spending money on our troops.
Right.
For troops, absolutely. It should get benefits. They are doing the most important job in this country. More important than anything that you do, Benjamin.
But someone who, I don't know, had a working life and then got some terrible condition and that meant they were on benefits, they shouldn't get the help.
Well, someone in armed forces should absolutely receive a right to housing that is fit for purpose. Not some illegal migrant
I think there's a lot of hypocrisy there, because
I don't think
the
so
truth
at all.
is you're trying to backtrack on the fact that you spend the rest of the time, and so do you lot, talking about how people shouldn't have benefits in a security net, and then you look at the consequences of people not being able to get on if life's
Benjamin, I don't think that's fair. On the issue of benefits, I've always advocated that we should be trying to get people back into work so they can contribute to the economy. But on Darren's point, I think you have quite nicely conflated two issues to make a point. And I don't really think the two issues are related at all. I think it's perfectly reasonable to say we need to do more for our veterans that have served us in the past, give them proper care, proper housing and the dignity they deserve, and also say that we need to do more about stopping the boats. They don't actually have anything to do with each other.
It is actually related, though, to be fair to Darren, it is related, because in terms of social housing, it is often the case that refugees and asylum seekers come up higher on the list when it comes to priority, because because they can say they are vulnerable in X, Y and Z way. And therefore veterans, often single men, are pushed down that list. So we do
So should single men be higher on the list than families, just in general?
A lot of the time, veterans who have risked their lives for our country, I believe that they should be further up the priority list. Yes, particularly when a lot of them suffer from mental health problems, PTSD, have massive difficulties entering again the labour market. It's really difficult.
Exactly.
Really, really difficult.
And I mean,
the problem is, I also think, when it comes to charity, unfortunately, veterans' charities aren't getting as much money as they used to. And I can't help but think it's because our whole discourse is dominated by talking about other issues, and people don't like to talk about veterans so much. I think they see it as being nationalist.
But why don't we just talk about veterans without talking about illegal migrants then?
Because where is the housing and accommodation? You spend all of your time, Albie, blowing smoke up of Rishi Sunak's bottom. What's he actually doing about this? Where are we going to house all the people that Rishi Sunak is letting come over the English Channel? How does that ensure we have the housing stock that we need for people like our veterans?
So on the point about where are Rishi Sunak and your best buddy, Suella Braverman, planning to house the migrants that are crossing the Channel? They're trying to house them on disused military bases. They're trying to house them on barges to get them out of the hotels and into more cost-effective accommodation. That is a separate issue, Darren, from veterans living a life of dignity in housing that they need.
All right, Albie's got his view. Leo, I mean, does this incense you? Do you see a link between the two, that actually we're being really quite generous to people who have scant regard for our laws, and they're not for the people that actually defend those laws?
Yeah, Darren, I've got to completely agree with you. It's ridiculous, and I hope if one good thing comes out of the Ukraine conflict is that we will stop having this shame, feeling this shame to be patriotic and have pride in our armed forces. They do an incredible job, and Ukraine has shown what happens if you don't have strong armed forces. Then you're nothing. You don't have a nation. If you don't enforce your borders, you don't have a nation. And the fact that anybody who can just get on something that floats and waltz into the country at Dover or whatever can then be treated so well and put in 4-star hotels. No wonder people are coming, and it's so dangerous because it incentivizes people to come. It dangles this carrot. It's like, look at the wonderful lifestyle you can have when you get to Britain at the expense of the taxpayer. So then people risk their lives coming across, and sadly, so many of them then drown on the journey.
But if it were the case that we were so good, you wouldn't have far more of those refugees going to countries like France than come here. People act like we take the whole world's load. We don't at all.
Well, I think there's definitely a link. Anyway, still ahead. Benjamin Butterworth is back. He says a general election will help cure our ailing economy. Do you agree? But next, it's the Carver Palaver, and I'll be asking if well-meaning idiots are at the root of many of our problems. Plus, me and Albie will be pestering the public. You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in their home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Cheers very much for your company and your emails. Shelley's been in touch and Shelley says, why are we housing these criminals at all? Adopt the Australian approach. Do not come, you are not welcome. Well, we'll hear more tomorrow on Camilla Tominey's show from a man who did just that. Bridget said, somebody needs to stop putting migrants into accommodation while our veterans sleep in the streets. I couldn't agree with you more. Now, though, it's time for our next showdown. Up next, Emily's taken aim at some well-meaning idiots. Plenty of them. It's time for the Carver Palaver.
Yes, some well-meaning idiots. Welcome to the latest edition of Well-Meaning Half-Wits, getting things catastrophically wrong. This time, the NHS. The NHS's latest drive to make people lose weight has accidentally made people fatter. Yes, seriously. Their healthy weight calculator tells people how many calories they should be eating every day. But some dullard programmed it wrong. So it advised people to eat the equivalent of 5 extra Big Mac burgers a week. That's an extra 2,086 calories. They've quite literally told fat people they can have their cake and eat it and some more. Now, given that obesity is costing the NHS billions of pounds a year, it would be nice if they weren't actively making the problem worse. We've got an NHS that seems to be in a permanent state of crisis. We've got a government that thinks banning buy one, get one free offers is the way to slim down our waistlines, and we can't even run a calorie calculator right. So, Leo, what does this tell us about the state of the nation?
Well, this shows, I think the NHS is just trying to make sure it's drumming up business, making sure it's still got enough people to treat, so nobody's going to lose their jobs in the diabetes clinic in 5 years' time. No, it's an absolute joke. I mean, you don't need a calculator to work out if you need to lose weight. Just look in the mirror. Do you fit? Does your fat face fit in the mirror? If it doesn't, then stop eating the pies. And all these people, I've got an overactive thyroid.
Leo, apparently this website is the most visited NHS website or government website besides from COVID-related ones.
I'll tell you what's...
So 22 million visitors last year.
I'll tell you what's visited more, justeat.com. That gets more hits.
I can save the NHS a fortune, though, Emily, on this. Instead of tinkering about with this calculator nonsense, all they need to do is write on the NHS website, eat less and get off your arse. That's it. It's as simple as that.
Now, Albie... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Benjamin.
No, I was going to say, it obviously isn't like that because, you know, so many of our foods have been filled with additives, with sugar, with salt, where you wouldn't naturally expect them, that since they brought in calorie counts on menus, I found that really helpful because, you know, go to a...
You lost any weight as a result, though? Because
I've been more aware of it.
Don't help. You just become more aware, but then you still go home and eat more. You have like a salad in the restaurant and then go scoff later.
I don't think he does.
I mean, look, this reinforced stool is working a treat this week. But honestly, you know, there were lots of food. So, for example, when I'm on a popular delivery website, you know, there are some meals where they have considerably more calories than expected. So I didn't realise, for example, a pizza typically has about 1,000, 1,100 calories. Meanwhile, a plain pizza might be about 700. You know, that kind of difference.
You didn't know cheese had calories in it.
But I didn't think, you know, there's a big difference between two different pizzas that I would have otherwise been undecided about.
Hang on a minute.
And you can have a big change.
You've got to answer
And
that.
then there's room for
you
the
didn't
cookies.
know that eating a whole scoff on your face with a whole pizza
No, I
was
think
bad for you.
I didn't know it's half a holy day allowance. No.
I think what Benjamin was saying is that certain pizza toppings are very calorific and margaritas are less calorific. And I actually think...
Well, rocket
and I actually think...
You put more on a pizza.
This is Benjamin, a clever man who didn't know that. So what about the rest of us?
You flatter me.
So let's just talk about this. I think you were going to ask me about
I was going to ask why you're such a nanny state supporter.
My support for banning buy one get one free deals for junk food and my support for the sugar tax, and why I actually think the recommendations that Henry Dimbleby came up with last year, the government actually should have followed through with. This country has a huge obesity problem. I think it's regrettable that this man who programmed the NHS website got it all wrong, but we do need a serious anti-obesity strategy in this country. 40% of adults are overweight. 20% of children are overweight. This laissez-faire approach that you advocate is not working.
Stating the problem that we have, which we all know, people are too fat in this country, and then stating potential policy proposals that the government has even delayed because they think they're nonsense, really.
No, it's because too many backbenchers keep saying, it's a nanny state. It's not. The government needs to act on the bulging wastelands of this country, but because it's causing the huge public spending going into the NHS.
Sugar taxes don't work.
They do work.
Shown to not
they have worked.
No, they haven't.
Yes, they do.
No, they haven't.
We have seen sugar content in drinks go down
that hasn't affected our waistline,
since
though,
they
Albie.
introduced the sugar levy.
We've seen that.
We've seen recipes change.
You can't
this is a good thing.
You're so paternalistic. You can't
I'm not paternalistic. I want less spending on the NHS.
There's also minimum alcohol pricing in Scotland. It hasn't stopped Leo hitting the bottle.
Also, minimum alcohol unit pricing actually pushes people into hard drugs.
I'm not talking about alcohol.
Which could actually be the solution.
I'm not talking about alcohol.
Which could actually be the solution to this problem.
That's an intervention, though.
You never see a fat heroin user.
But, Emily, why do you think that people shouldn't have this information before them? You know,
I don't
can
think
get
they
complicated. You're saying that people should be denied this information.
No. I'm saying that the NHS clearly is totally incompetent, that they can't even run a calorie counter. But also, what I would say is that if you want a calorie counter, there are very many apps and other websites that can do it for you, and clearly they do it much better than the NHS does. And the NHS, which I forgot to add in my little monologue there, the NHS was told that the calorie counter wasn't working, and they kept it up for a year or so. So it's just hopeless, and I think it's just a little vignette that demonstrates how terrible our NHS is and how we're run by idiots. But that's just my point.
Well, I think you need a pizza.
So how should we tackle obesity in Britain then, Emily? What's the grand free market plan to tackle obesity?
Education. I've got nothing wrong with education.
But
sugar taxes don't work. Yes, they may lead to a Coke company reducing their sugar amount. It's had absolutely no impact on our waistlines. It's made us more obese. Anyway, coming up, Benjamin Butterworth on why we need a general election immediately. But first, the Saturday 5 has something of a cage-fighting feel, doesn't it? Doesn't it, Albie?
It does today, but I think I'm winning.
Well, let the viewers
That's
decide.
optimistic.
But tech billionaires Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, that's Twitter and Facebook, are apparently going to get it on for real. Would you watch the tussle? Get it on. Would you watch this tussle of the tech titans? Myself and Albie ventured out to investigate. It's time for Pest of the Public.
Yeah. Would you watch Elon Musk versus Mark Zuckerberg in a cage fight?
Why not?
Who do you think would win?
I think Elon would win.
Why do you think Elon would win?
I think he's got an element of brutality that maybe Mark Zuckerberg doesn't seem to have.
Do you think you'll be watching it?
No.
Why not?
I mean, tech and Musk has pissed me off for the last year. I can't bear him.
I would watch it, yes.
Why?
Because they're both very interesting characters.
I think Zuck's going to kick his ass.
Why do you think Zuck is going to kick his ass?
He's been training for the last 5 years in BJJ and stuff, and I don't think Elon has been doing any sort of workout or training in martial arts.
What about Facebook versus Twitter?
That's a good question.
What do you prefer?
Twitter.
Probably Mark Zuckerberg. I've seen some of his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments. I think he's got it in him.
So you're in the know, because I just read about that today, that he's this Jiu-Jitsu champion.
Yeah, he's got a bit of talent.
But apparently Elon Musk has the walrus going for him, and that's the move where he just body plants someone, stays there and doesn't do anything?
It's not going to work. Not enough, not good enough.
No.
Why not?
I don't care.
Not even for a bit of fun?
No.
Do you prefer Facebook or Twitter?
None.
You don't do social media?
No.
Gosh, what about you?
So Elon Musk and Mark Wahlberg?
Zuckerberg.
Oh, Zuckerberg.
Not Wahlberg.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now? Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant, read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News. Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel. On Mark Dolan Tonight, in my big opinion, Vladimir Putin is facing a potential coup. This is great news for Britain and the free world. In my take at 10, Harry and Meghan are considering taking Diana's surname of Spencer. I'm sorry, what an insult to the legacy of the late great princess. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization are rolling out a ban on booze. We'll be next. It's time to save the great British pint. Plus radio legend Mike Reid, Channel 4 star Aggie Mackenzie and tomorrow's papers. We're live from 9.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Thank you for sending in your emails. I've got one for Albie here. Milo says, the sugar tax is counterproductive. Artificial sweeteners are both unhealthier and make you gain more weight than full sugar drinks. On the same topic of obesity, Steve has to say, it's because people are so depressed with their lives now. Get rid of the Tories and Labour and all will be slim again. There's something to that. Our politicians are to blame for making us so depressed that we get fat. Anyway, now it's time for our final battle, last but not least.
Indeed, up next, it's Benjamin, and he's thrown his toys right out of the pram and is demanding that we get to the ballot box pronto. Off you go, Benjamin.
Yeah, that's right, because your lot, Darren, have destroyed this country. Britain is in free fall. Our economy is crashing. again. It's the second time in about 9 months when things have gone under. And I think that when you look at the polls, Labour has been between 18 and 25% ahead for about 9 months. It is obvious that Britain needs to get to the ballot box if Britain is to be saved. It's just, 8-9 months since big spender Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng came in, splashed the cash and spent 40 billion quid in 40 days. But then Rishi Sunak said, no. I'm the Tory that can save the economy. You know, after Boris had spent it all on COVID and Liz spent it all on herself. And now we've got Rishi who said, if you had had Liz Truss for longer, we might have had 5% interest rates. That's what he warned. Well, this week we got 5% interest rates. And that means for the third of Britons who have mortgages that it is going to be a potential catastrophe in the next 12 to 18 months. You know, the Tories seem to be able to ruin the economy, whoever is in charge. The British economy has sunk faster than a submersible in the last couple of years. And that's why, even though I'm a believer in equal opportunities, I think equal opportunity for every Tory MP to ruin the economy while being Chancellor or Prime Minister, probably taking it a bit too far. But you know what? You don't need to agree with me or the Labour Party, though clearly about half the country does. Even if you're supporting reform, it is clear that Britain is done with this government, and so let's have a general election now. Now, Albie, you're a Tory stooge. Do you not think they're useless?
No, I don't think they're useless at all. What I'm actually concerned about are the spending commitments that Keir Starmer has made, I believe to the tune of £80 billion. How is he going to pay for it? How is Keir Starmer's plan to stop North Sea oil and gas exploration going to help with the inflation crisis that we see at the moment? It's the exact opposite of the kind of policies that we would be needing to bring down inflation. Now, that's not to say that I think the government is doing enough to bring down inflation. There are many supply-side reforms that the government could introduce, but Labour, in my opinion, is not the answer.
Yeah, before you answer that, Benjamin, I just do want to apologise to viewers if anyone was offended by the submersible comment. But I do think, on Albie's point as well, Jeremy Hunt basically said the way to tackle inflation is to delay the ban on buy one, get one free deals. And I thought, are you kidding me? Are you having a giraffe? It was a joke.
I mean, to be clear, £80 billion, that would be about 70 days of Liz Truss, just to put it in context, because she got rid of 40 billion in her, 30-odd days that she managed to be Prime Minister. You know, I think the truth is that we have no growth, and all of these people have said they bring growth to the economy, because that's really the only way to do it. And,
do you know what, Ben?
You've had your ideas in office, Emily, and it's not happened.
My ideas, wow. Do you know what, Benjamin? You called Leo and I, and Darren possibly, miserable for pointing out the virtue signalling of certain Glastonbury goers. That was the most miserable little monologue I've ever heard.
Well, imagine how the country feels.
It was, you know, you even mocked the submersible, you know?
Do you know what?
Atrocious.
Well, I see now you want to cancel people having jokes. What a U-turn you've had, cancelling jokes and saying that we shouldn't make profit. You're having quite the revolution.
Well, anyway.
We haven't had this economic decline that you're talking about. I mean, the whole world has been through, economic ructions because of COVID and just because of the malaise is affecting the whole world. I don't know how you can single out Britain, saying, I mean, when was there a recession then?
I mean, we've been at 0.1% for God knows how long, so I'm not sure that's a great endorsement. You know,
well, to answer me this, if Keir Starmer, if you think the Tories are so terrible and their policies are so awful, why is Keir Starmer exactly copying most of them?
I mean, that's just not true, is it? You know, Labour has a big plan on things like climate change and green economy, which I think Britain can lead on.
Britain is a world leader. Britain is a world leader in green power.
Yeah, and I think we should go much further. Look, you know, don't think about your negative views of what could happen. Why don't you look at what a Labour government had done? You know, we had the longest period of growth in post-war Britain under Tony Blair.
Fuelled by unsustainable levels of immigration.
Britain had, well, you know, but there's a good point, because you will talk about immigration as though it takes money away, when we know that Britain's got richer.
No, the powers that be love immigration because it's cheap labour for their businesses, and it depresses wages, reduces the bargaining power of workers that are already there, and it pushes up the price of fixed assets such as houses. So if you own property, there's much more demand for that property, so you get richer.
But look, we've got Prince Brexit himself here. You know, you've had this 7 years, what was it, 7 years last week or something. Do you think it's going well?
I think it's a total nonsense to say that Keir Starmer's got a plan. The man has taken more positions than the Karmasodin Sutra. It's a total distortion of where we're at. But no, I don't think it's going well, Benjamin. I'm not some defender of Rishi Sunak. I'm not called Albiam and Kona. I don't argue that at all. It's a total shambles. Immigration hasn't got sorted. Brexit has been naffed up because they haven't dealt with it properly.
But wasn't that Boris Johnson, not Rishi Sunak? How can you blame Rishi Sunak?
I blame them both, Albie.
But he was shaking his hand in a picture earlier on.
Right, we're going to have to end it there. You'll be delighted to know. Thank you for watching, though. I do appreciate your company. A final email from Darryl. He says, Dear Saturday 5 team, the best way for fat people to lose weight is a diet of prunes, baked beans and dates. What? Don't need NHS calorie counters, just a handy toilet and loo rolls. Well, there's a thought. Next up, it's the brilliant Mark Dolan Tonight. You'll enjoy that one, but we'll see you here, same time next week. Cheers for your company.
Hello there, very good evening. I'm Jonathan Vautry, here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. We have a rather humid and muggy night ahead of us. We've got low pressure to the northwest of the UK, high pressure to the southeast, but between that we are feeding in some really quite hot and humid conditions in that southwesterly airflow. So really going to feel quite sticky for a lot of us as we head throughout the night. Rather uncomfortable for sleeping. Most of us will stay dry though with some clear intervals. The Outer Hebrides just getting a glancing blow of some perhaps heavy showers, and far west of Northern Ireland seeing a little rain towards dawn on Sunday morning. But look at those temperatures holding up around 18 Celsius in a lot of towns and cities. Really quite a warm start to Sunday morning. A bright one for England, Wales and Scotland, but we're going to watch as this rain pushes in from the west, providing some heavy outbreaks for Northern Ireland and then eventually into parts of Western Scotland, Northern England and Northern Wales as well. Chances of some thunderstorms developing along this as well as ahead of it for Eastern England and Scotland could provide some torrential downpours of rain and hail. Ahead of that in the south, staying drier, but temperatures still up into the 30 degrees of Celsius. Really quite a hot, sticky day here. That rain then clears its way off through Sunday evening. Will take a little bit of time before eventually leaving parts of the Northern Isles. Behind that, though, our winds start changing to more of a westerly direction, and that's going to feed in some slightly fresher air, so temperatures a little bit lower come Sunday night and more comfortable for sleeping, around 12 to 14 degrees Celsius. The new working week then starts off on a bright and sunny note for many of us. Into the afternoon, we'll start to see some showers bubbling up, primarily across the northern half of the UK. Parts of southern Wales into central southern England will largely stay dry, with a lot of sunshine in between. There'll be some longer spells of rain as we head towards the middle part of the week, but still some sunshine in between those and temperatures around the low 20s.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The people's channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6 is Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's